Amelia Carter had learned how to become air inside that house. 10 months. 10 months of walking through marble hallways without leaving a footprint, of folding linens with hands that never trembled, of breathing so quietly the silence forgot she was in it. The Blackwood estate sat on 3 acres of Long Island coastline, a fortress of gray stone and tall glass that watched the Atlantic like a sleeping animal. 3 floors, 42 rooms. Rose gardens trimmed to military precision by a man named Henrik, who never spoke to anyone but the flowers. The driveway curved through black iron gates that opened only for cars worth more than most people's homes. Inside, every chandelier was Murano. Every door handle was solid brass. Every breath taken by the staff was monitored. She polished those brass handles 3 times a week. Slowly, carefully. She had memorized the weight of each one in her palm, the way the metal warmed under her cloth, the faint scratches no one else would ever notice. She knew which floorboard on the second landing creaked, which window in the east wing whistled when the wind came off the sound. She knew the housekeeper Rosa's footsteps were heavy and brisk. She knew the gardener Henrik dragged his left boot. She knew the man called Marcus walked like a soldier, measured, soundless, deliberate. And she knew the footsteps of Aaron Blackwood. She had never seen his face up close. Not really. In 10 months he had been a shadow crossing a doorway, a silhouette behind smoked glass, a voice murmuring in Italian through a half-closed study door. He left traces instead of impressions. The scent of cedarwood cologne and aged whiskey clinging to the air after he passed. A black coat tossed over a chair that no one but him was permitted to touch. And once, only once, she had glanced up too quickly and caught his eyes from across the foyer winter gray, blue at the edges, cold as Hudson steel in January. She had looked away before he could notice. She always looked away. She was 22 years old. She earned $18 an hour and gave 70% of it to a hospital billing department on East 68th Street. She owed $78,000 for a surgery that had not happened yet, a surgery her younger brother Noah needed to keep his heart from killing him before he turned 16. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. 3 words she had learned to spell before she had learned to cry without sound. 3 words that had taken her parents' savings, then her parents' house, then her parents themselves when the gas line in that house caught fire 4 winters ago and left 2 orphans on a Greyhound bus from Albany to Penn Station, with 1 suitcase between them. Now she worked 2 shifts, days at the Blackwood estate, nights at a small Italian restaurant on Mulberry Street, where she washed dishes until 2 in the morning, and the line cooks called her little ghost, because she never spoke and never broke a plate. That Thursday she rode the F train home at 2:30 in the morning. Queens, a studio apartment above a laundromat. The radiator banged, the window leaked. The rent was $1,200 a month, and she paid it on time, always, the way her mother had taught her. Noah was awake when she opened the door. He was always awake. 15 years old, 2 thin, dark circles under brown eyes that still somehow held light. He was sitting up against the pillows, sketchbook on his knees, drawing the skyline from memory because he had not been allowed to walk outside in 3 weeks. He coughed when she came in, a dry, papery sound that scraped the inside of her ribs. "Hey," she said softly. She took off her coat. She placed her purse on the counter where $43 in tips waited to be counted. "You're late. The queue was delayed. You always say that." She smiled the way she had been smiling for 4 years. The smile that hid the math, the fear, the column of numbers that lived behind her eyes. She crossed the room and pressed her lips to his forehead. Too warm, always too warm. Noah looked up at her. He had a question in his face. He had been holding it all evening. "Anything weird at that house today, sis?" Amelia paused. Just for a breath. "No," she said. Everything was exactly the same. It was the last time that sentence would ever be true. Monday morning arrived with a sky the color of wet concrete and the kind of cold that crept under doors. Amelia was at the estate by 6. She had slept 3 hours. She had counted the tips twice before bed, written the number in a notebook beside the hospital's account, and left the apartment before Noah woke. The kitchen at the Blackwood estate was the size of her entire apartment. Marble Island in the center. Twin wolf ranges. A copper espresso machine imported from Milan that no member of the staff was permitted to operate except the head housekeeper, Rosa, and Amelia. On the mornings Rosa called in late. Rosa had called in late. Again. Amelia made the espresso the way she had been taught. 18 grams of grounds. 30 seconds. A precise tamp. The crema came up the color of dark honey and held its surface for the full minute Rosa had once timed with a stopwatch. She set the porcelain cup on a silver tray and turned toward the dining hall. She did not get 3 steps. Vivian Blackwood was standing in the doorway. She was 24 years old. Her hair was the color of red wine left too long in the glass, cut blunt at the jaw, parted sharp. Her nails were black lacquer. She wore a silk robe that probably cost more than Noah's monthly prescription. And she was smiling the kind of smile Amelia had learned, in 10 months, to read as weather, the way sailors read clouds. "Oh," Vivian said, lightly, almost pleased. "There she is." The little ghost of the East Wing. Amelia kept her eyes lowered. "Good morning, Miss Blackwood." She had heard the story from Rosa during her 2nd week. Vivian had been Harrison Blackwood's secret for almost 20 years. A daughter born of an affair that the family had paid quietly to forget. She had grown up in an apartment on the Upper East Side, paid for in cash, while the Blackwood name belonged to another woman and another son. Then, 3 years ago, Eleanor Blackwood had driven off Henry Hudson Parkway in a midnight fog, and within 7 months Cordelia had moved into the master suite, signed the marriage certificate, and walked her daughter through the front doors as a Blackwood. Vivian had been given a wing of her own, a new last name, a seat at every dinner she had spent 2 decades watching from the outside. She had never forgiven the family for the years she had spent invisible, and she had a particular hatred for any woman who threatened to make her feel invisible again. She crossed the kitchen now, slow, deliberate, until she was close enough that Amelia could smell her perfume, something French, expensive, dying. She reached for the espresso. She took the cup off the tray. She tilted it. The coffee poured down the front of Amelia's gray uniform shirt in a slow, deliberate ribbon. Hot, staining, wasted, clumsy, Vivian said. Amelia did not move. "Do you think I don't notice?" Vivian's voice dropped into something quieter and meaner. "The way you find reasons to be in the library when my brother is working. The way you slow down on the stairs when you hear his door open. You think because you're pretty in that pathetic, broken bird way, he'll lift you out of this." She leaned closer. "Trash like you always thinks that. He won't. He doesn't even know your name. I apologize. Miss Blackwood, I'll change my shirt. You'll do more than that." Amelia lowered her head another inch. It was the practiced angle of survival. She had performed it for Vivian 31 times in 10 months. What Vivian did not know, what no one in that kitchen knew, was that the act she was performing had nothing to do with jealousy. The jealousy was a costume. The real reason lived in a phone call she had overheard 8 days earlier, when she had stepped onto the back terrace for a cigarette and heard Amelia's voice drifting through the open kitchen window, talking to her brother on speaker, a woman in a black velvet coat. She got out of another car. She walked to the edge and looked down and smiled. Vivian had stopped breathing on the terrace that night, because the woman in the black velvet coat was her own mother. She walked out of the kitchen now without another word. In the corridor, she pulled her phone from the pocket of her robe and typed a single message to a number that had no name. Still the same girl. Tonight. Don't leave anything on her face. By 10 in the morning, Amelia had changed her shirt, finished the silver in the dining hall, and been handed the keys to the 3rd floor. Rosa had finally arrived, smelling of cough drops and apology. She pressed the small brass ring into Amelia's palm without meeting her eyes. The 3rd floor was the library, the private study, and Aaron Blackwood's bedroom suite, 3 rooms cleaned by exactly 1 person on a strict rotation, 3 times a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. This was a Monday. Out of pattern. "He's flying back from Boston this afternoon," Rosa murmured. "He wants the library aired before he lands. Don't touch the desk. Don't touch the decanter. You know the rules." Amelia knew the rules. She climbed the back staircase with her cart. The 3rd floor smelled different from the rest of the house. Less polish, more paper. The library door was already unlocked. She stepped inside and the air closed around her like a held breath. She had cleaned this room 127 times. She knew every spine on the walnut shelves. She knew the Latin volumes ran from floor to ceiling on the east wall, the Italian poetry on the west, and the English novels Dickens, Melville. Steinbeck kept their quiet corner near the window. She knew the walnut desk was the heaviest piece of furniture on the floor, and that a thin scratch ran along its left edge, hidden under the blotter. She knew the crystal decanter was always 3 fingers low by Sunday, and refilled by Tuesday. She did not know who refilled it. She had never seen the hand. She worked in her usual order: window, sill, shelves, lampshade, desk surface around the papers, never the papers themselves. When she reached the silver picture frame at the corner of the desk, she slowed. It was a black and white photograph. A woman in her late 40s, standing in a garden, laughing at something just off camera. Her hair was pinned loosely. Her dress was light. Her eyes, even in grayscale, even 30 years old, were the kind of eyes that looked back at you. Eleanor Blackwood. Amelia had asked Rosa once, a long time ago, and Rosa had only said the name and then said nothing else for the rest of the afternoon. Amelia lifted the frame the way she always lifted it. She wiped the silver with the soft cloth. She wiped the glass. She set it back exactly 2 inches from the corner of the blotter, the way Aaron Blackwood evidently liked it, because in 10 months she had never seen it moved. She did not know why she handled that frame more carefully than anything else in the house. She only knew that she did. Footsteps in the corridor. 2 sets. Hard soles on hardwood. Moving fast. Amelia stepped sideways without thinking and pressed her back to the shelves between the Latin and the Italian poetry. The cloth was still in her hand. The voices came through the open door. One was speaking Italian, low, rapid, controlled. The other answered in the same language, but slower, older. Amelia could not follow the words. She caught only the English they slipped into when the Italian could not hold the meaning. The Petrov shipment is moving Friday. No witnesses on the dockside this time. Her heart hit her ribs once. Hard. She had known. She had always known. Every person who worked in that house knew. But knowing in the abstract and hearing it in a man's mouth at 10 in the morning were 2 very different things. The footsteps stopped at the library door. Amelia held her breath. A shadow filled the doorway. Tall. The long line of a charcoal coat. Aaron Blackwood paused on the threshold and let his eyes move across the room. The open window, the polished sill, the cart by the desk. His gaze passed the spot where she stood, pressed against the shelves, and for the smallest fraction of a second it stopped. He did not see her face. He saw a shape in gray uniform. He turned away. Marcus said something quietly in the corridor. Aaron answered in English, almost under his breath. She's been here 10 months. Why are you asking about her now? Because Vivienne hates her in a way that doesn't make sense. A pause. The Italian floorboards held the silence. Then Aaron, quieter still. Keep an eye on it. Their footsteps moved on. Amelia stayed against the shelves until she could no longer hear them. She did not know that the it he had just ordered watched was her. 3 days passed without incident. Amelia kept her head down. She cleaned the 3rd floor again on Tuesday, and again on Thursday. The picture frame stayed where she left it. The decanter dropped 3 fingers. She never saw the hand that emptied it. Thursday night, at 5 minutes past 9, her phone buzzed in the pocket of her uniform. She had just locked the laundry room. The staff wing was empty. Most of the house had gone quiet for the night. The message was from the internal estate number used by the family. The garage, lower level. Now. I dropped a ring near the Bentley, and one of you needs to find it before Cordelia notices it's gone. VB. Amelia stared at the screen. Vivienne Blackwood had never texted her directly. Vivienne Blackwood did not lose diamond rings in garages. And the lower garage, the one carved beneath the east wing for the rarest cars in the collection, had exactly 2 security cameras, both pointed at the vehicle doors, neither pointed at the floor where a person might stand. She knew this because she had cleaned those cameras herself. She knew, in the slow, sinking way her body had learned to know things, that she should not go. She went anyway. Refusing a direct order from a Blackwood was the kind of decision that ended a job. Ending the job ended Noah's medication. Ending Noah's medication ended Noah. The service elevator dropped her into a long, cold space that smelled of leather polish and gasoline. 6 cars. The Bentley sat 3rd from the right, black and silver under a single low light. Amelia called out softly that she had come, that she would help look. No answer. She walked the length of the Bentley anyway, eyes on the floor, palms beginning to sweat. She did not see them until they were already on her. 2 men in long black coats stepped out from behind the rear pillar of the next car. The first one caught her arm. The second one closed the space behind her. She had time to register the smell of cheap cigarettes and nothing else before the first fist hit her under the ribs and folded her around it like paper. They did not touch her face. That was the part she understood later, in fragments, on the floor. They were professionals. The first man worked her stomach and her left side. The second one took her back and her thighs. The blows were placed exactly where a gray uniform shirt and a long skirt would cover them. They did not speak while they worked. There was nothing personal in it. It was a job. When she could no longer stand, the first man crouched beside her on the concrete and put his mouth close to her ear. The boss's sister sends a message. Tomorrow morning, you buy 2 tickets out of New York. Anywhere. Take the sick brother with you. If you're still in this city by Monday, the next visit isn't for you. It's for him." He stood up. He brushed his coat smooth. They walked out through the side door the way they had come in. Amelia did not move for a long time. Cold concrete pressed against her cheek. She tried to breathe, and her left side answered with a sound she did not know a body could make. The only thought her mind could hold was Noah. Noah at 15. Noah with the cardiology charts pinned over his bed. Noah drawing the city skyline on the back of a hospital intake form because they had not had money for sketchbooks that month. New York Presbyterian was one of 4 hospitals in the country that performed his surgery. She could not put him on a train. She could not take him anywhere. She did not understand. She had not done anything. She had not even spoken to Aaron Blackwood. She crawled to the wall. She used the wall to stand. She walked to the service elevator with one arm wrapped around her ribs and a smile she practiced for the night doorman who would say good evening as she passed. She rode the F train home at 11:40. In the bathroom of the studio apartment in Queens, she ran the shower as hot as the pipes would give. She stood under it until her skin went red. She looked into the cracked half of the mirror and her eyes did not water. They had stopped doing that a long time ago. Her phone lit up on the sink. A message from Noah. "Sis, Dr. Vance said today I need another test. Why am I not getting better?" She did not sleep. By 4 a.m, she had decided to lie about the cause of the dark patch spreading along her left ribs, and by 5 she had decided to lie about why she was walking so slowly through the kitchen. By 6 she had texted Rosa that she had a doctor's appointment with her brother and would be 1 hour late. She did not text that the brother in question had a heart that was slowly forgetting how to beat. NYU Langone Cardiology was on the 7th floor of the Kimmel Pavilion. Noah was already in the waiting room when she arrived, hands folded over a thin manila folder with his name typed in the corner. He looked up at her too quickly and she saw him register the way she was holding her side. He did not ask. He had learned not to ask. "Long shift?" was all he said. "Long shift." Dr. Sebastian Vance came out of his office at 8:20. He was 50 years old. He wore his silver hair the way an actor wears it, too neat, too aware. His teeth were the kind of teeth that had cost someone money. He greeted Amelia by both hands, which was a thing he had started doing 6 weeks ago, and which she had never asked for. "Miss Carter. How are you, sweetheart? You look tired. Are you eating?" "I'm fine, doctor." He held her hand a beat longer than a doctor should. He led them into the consultation room and pulled Noah's most recent echocardiogram up on the wall monitor. The news was the news she had been preparing for, and the news she had been afraid of. The left ventricular wall had thickened another 3 millimeters since the last scan. The arrhythmia events were now occurring twice a week. He was going to add a 3rd medication to the regimen, a new beta blocker, not yet covered by Medicaid, available through a specialty pharmacy in Midtown. $3,500 a month. Surgery would still be required, and the most recent estimate for the surgical package had climbed to $92,000. Amelia heard the numbers the way she had heard the men in the garage. She nodded. She thanked him. She took the prescription slip. Noah said nothing through any of it. When Vance stepped into the hallway to take a call, Noah turned in his chair and looked at his sister with the kind of steadiness she did not remember him having a year ago. "Sis, I know. I'll figure out the money. That's not what I want to say." She stopped. Noah lowered his voice. "I take the pills exactly the way he tells me. I count them. I drink the water. I do the breathing log, and my chest hurts more than it did 3 months ago. Not less. More." Amelia looked at him. "Something isn't right," he said. She started to say it was the disease. She started to say sometimes things got worse before they got better. She did not get either sentence out before Noah added, very quietly, 3 weeks ago when you were late picking me up, I sat by the window in the lobby. I saw Dr. Vance in the parking garage. He was talking to a woman. Red hair, dark nails, the kind of coat my old teacher used to call too much money, they argued. He gave her an envelope. She gave him one back. Amelia did not breathe. "Could just be family," she said. "Don't think about it. Sis, don't think about it, Noah." She squeezed his hand. The squeeze was a lie and they both knew it. Because she had seen Vivian Blackwood in exactly that coat, with exactly those nails, 3 days a week for 10 months. And there was no version of the world in which Vivian Blackwood had family business with a cardiologist on the 7th floor of a Manhattan hospital. She walked Noah toward the elevators. She told him to wait by the front desk while she used the restroom. She did not use the restroom. She slipped down the corridor that curved behind the imaging suite, the corridor Vance had walked into 10 minutes earlier, and stopped just short of the open archway. His voice was low, close, phone pressed tight to his ear. The new dose will weaken the heart slowly. Not enough to alarm the imaging, just enough to keep the sister busy with appointments and afraid to think about anything else. Yes, the transfer cleared this morning. Same account. A pause. She suspects nothing. Amelia stepped back from the wall. She walked to the front desk. She took Noah's hand. She held it tighter than she meant to. For the first time in 10 months, the thing rising inside her chest was not fear. It was a clean, white-hot anger she did not yet know what to do with. Saturday evening brought the kind of guests who arrived in matched black cars and did not give their names at the door. 24 of them. The estate called it a private dinner for business associates. The staff called it nothing at all, because the staff had learned a long time ago that the safest word for that kind of evening was no word. Rosa pinned a fresh apron to Amelia's uniform at 7 and handed her a silver tray. Wine service. East wing only. Smile if they look at you. Do not speak unless asked. Understood? Amelia nodded. Her left side was still wrapped beneath the uniform. The bruises from Thursday night had ripened overnight into a deep, sick purple. Every time she lifted the tray, something low in her ribs answered. She lifted it anyway. She moved through the east wing for an hour. She refilled crystal glasses with Brunello she would never taste. She kept her eyes at chest level the way Rosa had taught her. She counted the steps to the kitchen and back. At 9:15, Vivienne caught her wrist in the corridor that ran past the conservatory. You're still here. Vivienne's breath was hot with gin. Her pupils were too wide. Her grip was tight enough that the tray tilted. I asked you a question. You are still here. I'm working, Miss Blackwood. You were supposed to be gone. 2 days ago. Gone. She dragged Amelia 3 steps deeper into the corridor, away from the dining room doors, toward the garden wing where the lamps were dimmer and the witnesses fewer. 2 of her bodyguards stood at the far end, not moving. They had seen this before. They had been paid not to see it again. Vivienne struck her across the face with an open hand. The sound of it cracked off the marble. You filthy little nobody, she hissed. You think I don't see what you're aiming at? You think I don't know? Amelia did not raise her hand to her cheek. She kept the tray level. A drop of blood was already gathering at the corner of her mouth. Vivienne seized the tray and threw it. 3 crystal glasses hit the floor and exploded across the inlaid stone like white ice. One long shard of crystal skipped sideways and drove itself into Amelia's calf, just above the line of her shoe. Blood ran down into the marble grout in a thin, dark line. Vivienne stepped back. She straightened her dress. She did not look down. Clean it up, she said, and get out of my family's life. She walked away. Amelia knelt. She did not cry. She did not gasp. She picked up the first piece of crystal with 2 fingers, then the second. Her hands were steady because she had given up the right to let them shake somewhere around the 4th bill from the hospital. She did not see him at first. Aaron Blackwood was standing at the far end of the corridor, where the lamplight thinned into shadow. A tumbler of whiskey hung loose in his right hand. His suit jacket was unbuttoned. He had not moved during any of it. He had watched the slap. He had watched the throw. He had watched the glass open the skin of her leg. His eyes, that winter gray she had only ever caught in passing, had not blinked once. She did not know how long he had been there. Vivienne's heels disappeared around the corner. The bodyguards followed. Then Aaron moved. He walked the length of the corridor with the same measured silence she had memorized through 10 months of floorboards, and he stopped 2 steps from where she was kneeling in glass. He did not look at the blood on the marble. He did not look at the cut on her leg. He looked at her face. Have you ever told anyone? It was the first sentence he had ever spoken to her. Amelia's mouth went dry. The shard in her hand cut into the pad of her thumb and she did not feel it. It was my fault, Mr. Blackwood, she said. Her voice came out level. She had practiced it. I'm clumsy. He looked at her for a long time. He did not raise his voice. He did not even move. You lie very badly. He turned and walked away. She rode the F train home at 11:10, with a folded napkin pressed against her calf. In the bathroom of the studio apartment in Queens, she sterilized a sewing needle over the gas burner, threaded it with black cotton, and put 4 stitches into her own leg. She did not know that, 2 miles east, in the back of a black car moving along the Long Island Expressway, Aaron Blackwood was already on the phone with Marcus, and the order he was giving was 3 words long. Pull everything. Now. Sunday morning came in gray. Rain hit the windows of the 3rd-floor study in long horizontal sheets, the kind of November storm that turned Long Island Sound the color of wet slate. Aaron Blackwood had not gone to bed. He sat behind the walnut desk in a black sweater and an open collar. A coffee cooled untouched at his elbow. In front of him, a thin gray folder waited, closed. Marcus Riley came in at 8:10 without knocking. He had been working since Aaron's call left the back seat of the car at midnight. His eyes had the flat, alert quality of a man who had not slept and would not sleep until told to. "Boss, sit." Marcus sat. Aaron pushed the folder across the desk. It was a personnel file. The Blackwood estate kept a file on every employee: fingerprints, references, 3 years of tax records, the names of every relative the applicant had been willing to disclose. The name on the top tab was Carter, Amelia J. The file was thin, 3 pages. Marcus opened it. 22 years old, born Albany, New York. Both parents deceased house fire, 4 years ago. One dependent, a younger brother, 15, in active cardiac treatment at NYU Langone. Submitted application 10 months ago. Hired by Rosa Mendez, head of housekeeping, on a probationary basis at $18 an hour. No prior service in private homes. No criminal record. No social media. No known associates. Marcus closed the file. "I need 3 things," Aaron said. His voice was the same voice he used when he ordered a quiet shipment moved or a quiet body found. First, the brother's full medical history. Every hospital, every prescription, every doctor he has been treated by since the parents died. I want the names of the people who have been billed and the people who have been paid. Second, every financial movement out of Vivienne's accounts in the past 6 months. Every wire, every cash withdrawal over $2,000, every transfer to anything that does not look like a handbag. Third, the lower garage cameras. Pull everything from the last 3 weeks. I want to see what was recorded, and I want to see what was not. Marcus took it in without writing it down. He never wrote anything down. "Boss. Yes, it's a housekeeper." Marcus said it carefully, not as a question, not as a refusal, as a man giving his employer one last chance to choose a smaller fight. Aaron did not look at him. He reached across the desk and picked up the silver photo frame. He held it the way a man holds an object that does not belong to the present tense. He did not turn the photograph toward Marcus. He kept the woman's face for himself. "My mother used to say something," he said quietly. "A person who stays silent while they bleed is either someone with no one to tell or someone protecting somebody else." He set the frame back at exactly 2 inches from the corner of the blotter. "Go," Marcus went. By 2 p.m, he was back with a tablet, and the kind of expression he wore for funerals. He set the tablet in front of Aaron and pulled up the garage feed. 3 nights, 3 deleted windows. Each window 24 minutes long. Each window between the hours of 9 and 10 in the evening. Each window centered on the lower garage, the only floor of the estate whose camera blind spots had been mapped by the man who had once mapped them with a blue marker on a printout for a different reason entirely. The deletion was done from a terminal inside the house, Marcus said. Not from a phone. Not from outside. Someone walked into the security office, used a master credential, and erased the recordings within an hour of each event. Vivienne? She doesn't have the master credential, but her bodyguard Dom does. Aaron's jaw moved once. Marcus swiped to the next screen. And this, a wire from Vivienne's personal account 3 weeks ago. $45,000. Recipient is a single-shell corporation registered in Delaware. The corporation has one declared officer, a cardiologist named Sebastian Vance. Aaron read the name twice. He did not say anything. When Marcus left, Aaron walked to the window. The rain had thinned. The garden below was empty. The rose beds his mother had planted 20 years ago were dark green under the wet. He thought of Eleanor for the first time in a long time, without the practiced distance he had built around her name. He saw her hands in the garden. He heard her voice in the kitchen. He saw the photograph of her car on Henry Hudson Parkway, hood crushed against the rocks at the bottom of the cliff, and he heard his father Harrison say, very calmly, 3 years ago, "Let your mother rest. Son. There is nothing here to find." He picked up the phone. "Marcus. Boss. Pull every report on my mother's accident. Pull the original. Pull the one they filed after. And find out whether a 15-year-old boy named Noah Carter has anything at all to do with what happened on that road." Tuesday at 3 p.m, the formal dining room was empty except for 42 place settings of unused china and the smell of beeswax polish. Amelia was folding the long linen runner the family used for state dinners. Her left hand worked slower than her right. The 4 stitches in her calf pulled when she walked. She had given herself another day. One more day to think. One more day to find a plan that did not exist. She heard the door behind her. Not Rosa's brisk step, not Henrik's drag. Soft, measured, soundless on hardwood. The door clicked shut. Then the lock turned. The small mechanical sound of the bolt sliding home traveled the length of the dining room and stopped her hands flat on the linen. Aaron Blackwood was alone in the room with her. He did not sit. He did not speak. He walked to the long oak table from the far end, slow, the way a man walks a property line. He stopped opposite her with the polished length of the table between them. About 4 meters of wood. Not enough. Amelia Carter, he said. 22 years old. Born Albany, New York. Both parents died in a house fire the year you turned 18. One brother, Noah, 15. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, diagnosed 11 months after the fire. You hold 2 jobs. You give 70% of your wages to a hospital billing department on East 68th Street. You currently have $312 in your checking account. Amelia's hand tightened on the linen. She had gone white to the lips. She did not know how he had reached 312. She had not checked the balance in 2 days. He did not stop. You have been struck 3 times inside my house. The first was 4 weeks ago, in the lower garage. The second was 11 days later, in the same place. The third was Thursday night. You did not tell Rosa. You did not call the police. You did not quit. He paused. Why? She held on to the only line she had practiced. I need the job. No. He stepped around the corner of the table. His shoes made no sound. He kept coming until he stood at the end of the side she was on, 2 paces from her, and she could smell the cedar of his cologne under the smoke of whatever he had been drinking earlier. You need something else. You are protecting somebody. Amelia's stitches began to throb. Her vision tilted at the edges and steadied. Something inside her wanted to fold. She did not let it. Mr. Blackwood, please. Just let me go. I'll resign tonight. My brother and I will be on a bus before the weekend. Why does Vivienne want you out of New York? The question struck her sideways. She had not expected it. She had been ready for why didn't you tell? Ready for who hit you? Ready for accusation? She was not ready for that question, because that question did not have an answer she owned. She opened her mouth and closed it. I don't know, she said. He watched her face for a long moment. The winter gray of his eyes moved across her the way Marcus moved through a room, measuring, cataloging, deciding. Whatever he was looking for, he found it. The small shift in his jaw said so. He believed her. She did not know yet that this was the only reason she was still standing in that room. He reached into the inside pocket of his suit and took out a folded square of cream-colored paper. He set it on the linen between them. He did not push it toward her. He let her come to it. My private line, he said. When you are ready to tell me the truth, you will call this number. Until then, his voice dropped, quiet enough that she felt it in the bones of her wrist before she heard it. No one in this house will touch you again. Not Vivienne. Not her men. Not anyone. He turned. He walked to the door. The bolt slid back. He paused with his hand on the brass. Amelia. She looked up. I see you now, he said. I'm sorry it took me 10 months. The door closed behind him. She stood in the middle of the dining room with the small square of paper on the linen in front of her. The chandelier light caught the edge of it. Her ribs hurt. Her calf hurt. Her hand did not move. For the first time in 10 months, somebody in that house had said her name. The feeling that rose inside her was warm, and it was the most frightened she had ever been. She rode the F train home with the folded square of paper in the inside pocket of her coat, the cream of it pressed against her chest the entire way. She did not take it out. She did not need to read the number again. She had memorized it before she had finished folding the linen. Noah was awake. He was always awake. He looked up from the sketchbook when she came in, and something in her face made him close it without finishing the line he had been drawing. He set it on the nightstand. He waited. She sat on the edge of his bed. She put her hands flat on the blanket so they would not shake. She had thought all the way home about how to ask. There was no good way. She asked the way she had to. Noah, 3 years ago, you walked home from school that one afternoon, the long way, along the parkway path above the cliff. You came home pale and you would not eat dinner and you slept on the floor of my room for a week. And I did not ask you why because I thought it was the new school. Her throat worked once. What did you see that day? Noah's eyes went very still. He was 12 when it happened. He was 15 now. He had carried this thing inside him for 3 years the way she had carried the hospital bills for 4. And like her, he had built a quiet, careful shape around it. He spoke slowly. There was a black Mercedes. It came around the upper curve too fast. I heard it before I saw it. It went through the guardrail like the rail wasn't there. It dropped. He swallowed. I ran to the edge. The car was on its side in the rocks. The woman inside was moving. She was alive, sis. I saw her hand on the window. She was trying to push the glass. Amelia did not breathe. And then a second car stopped on the road behind me. I dropped down behind the bushes. A woman got out. Red hair, the long kind. A black velvet coat that came past her knees. She walked to the edge of the cliff, and she looked down at the Mercedes, and he hesitated, because the word was the part of the memory he had not been able to say out loud for 3 years. She smiled. He said it again, quieter. She smiled, Amelia. And then she took a phone out of the coat and she called someone and she said, "It's done. Eleanor is not coming back this time." And then she got into her car and she drove away. And I ran. I ran all the way home and I told you I had a stomach bug because I did not know what else a kid was supposed to say. He looked at his hands. "A month ago, when I came to pick you up at the gate that one Tuesday, the woman who came out of the side door to scold the gardener, that was her. The same face, the same hair, older, but it was her. And then I called you that night and I told you on speaker and you said you were going to ask Rosa who she was and you forgot." I didn't forget. Amelia closed her eyes. The pieces did not click. They locked. Vivienne had not been jealous of a housekeeper. Vivienne had not been protecting a brother's bed. Vivienne had been protecting her own mother, the woman in the black velvet coat, Cordelia Blackwood. And Noah was not a fragile 15-year-old patient. Noah was a living witness to a murder. And Dr. Sebastian Vance was not a careless doctor with an expensive shell company. Dr. Sebastian Vance was a man being paid to slowly weaken a boy's heart until that boy died of natural-looking causes and a 3-year-old secret died with him. The phone call Vivienne had overheard had not been about hospital appointments. It had been a name, a coat, a cliff. Amelia reached for Noah and pulled him against her so quickly he made a small, surprised sound. She put her hand on the back of his head the way their mother used to. And she cried. Finally, for the first time in front of him in 4 years quietly, without sound, the tears sliding off her jaw into his hair. When she could breathe again, she took the folded paper out of her coat. She smoothed it on her thigh. She picked up her phone. She entered the number digit by digit. Her thumb hovered over the call button. If she pressed it, she handed her brother's life to a man whose family was the reason any of this was happening. If she did not press it, the next thing that killed Noah would not be his heart. It would be Cordelia Blackwood. The screen dimmed. Her thumb did not move. At 5 a.m. on Wednesday, Amelia pressed the button she had not been able to press the night before. It rang once. Blackwood. He was awake. He had been awake. The single word landed in her ear without sleep in it, without surprise in it. He had been waiting for that ring the way a man waits for a verdict. "Battery Park," she said. 7 o'clock. "Come alone." She hung up before he could answer. At 7, the southern tip of Manhattan was still gray. The fog off the Hudson rolled in low across the railings of the seawall and smudged the outline of the Statue of Liberty into a darker piece of weather. The benches were wet. A single jogger passed and did not look up. Amelia sat on the third bench from the water, with a manila envelope flat on her lap, and her hands flat on the envelope. Aaron came around the corner at 7 exactly. Long black coat, hands in the pockets. No Marcus. No driver waiting behind him on the curb. He had driven himself. He had come exactly the way she had asked him to come. He sat one bench length away. He did not crowd her. He did not speak. She gave him the envelope. Inside were 3 things. Copies of Noah's full medical chart for the past 11 months, with the dates of every dose change marked in red ballpoint in her own hand. Photocopies of every prescription Dr. Vance had written, with a margin note next to each that she had stayed up writing at 3 a.m. Medical journals described this combination as cardiotoxic at sustained dose. See, Nije, 2019. Lancet, 2021. And the third thing, on a page torn from a yellow legal pad, was a single paragraph in her clearest handwriting. 3 years ago. Henry Hudson Parkway. A black Mercedes. A red-haired woman in a black velvet coat. It's done. Eleanor is not coming back this time. He read it standing. His face did not move. Not a muscle. Not the corner of his mouth. Not the line of his jaw. Not the set of his shoulders. But Amelia watched the hand on the back of the bench. She watched his knuckles whiten one finger at a time until the skin over them was the color of bone. When he finished, he set the pages back into the envelope. He closed the envelope. He stood up and walked 4 steps to the railing and looked out across the water. He stayed there with his back to her for what she counted as a full minute. 2. The fog moved through him in slow gray fingers. He turned around. "You should have told me sooner. I didn't know if you would believe me," Amelia said. "I didn't know if you were part of it." The smallest thing happened at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile. The ghost of one. The kind of expression that hurt to make. "Eleanor Blackwood was the only person on this earth I would have traded everything to protect," he said. "You just gave me the thing I have been looking for 3 years." He crossed the distance between the 2 benches in 2 steps and crouched in front of her so his face was lower than hers. He took her hand. His was warm. Hers was so cold he closed both of his around it before he spoke again. "From this moment, you and your brother do not belong to New York anymore. You belong to me, and nobody touches either of you again. Not Vivienne, not her men, not the doctor, not the woman in the coat." "What about Vivienne?" she said. "What about your stepmother?" His eyes went somewhere a long way past hers. The gray in them turned the color of the river behind him. "Let me handle them. You only have to do one thing. Trust me." She looked at him for a long time. Her whole life had taught her that trusting a man like Aaron Blackwood was the last decision a woman made. Her brother's life had just taught her something else. She nodded. He drove her to Queens himself. Marcus was already there with 2 cars and 4 men who did not introduce themselves. Noah was helped down the steps of the building above the laundromat with his sketchbook under one arm and a duffel bag under the other. He looked up at the tall stranger in the long black coat, and the tall stranger crouched to his height and said, "Hello, Noah. My name is Aaron. You are safe now." 2 hours later, the Carter siblings unpacked into a penthouse on the Upper East Side, with a view that swept from the park to the river. 2 armed men stood inside the foyer. 2 more stood at the elevator. The locks on the door were the kind that did not exist in stores. Amelia stood at the window with Noah's hand in hers, and watched the morning turn gold over Central Park. For the first time since the fire in Albany, she was not the only person in the world keeping her brother alive. By 11 o'clock that same Wednesday night, Dr. Sebastian Vance was riding the elevator of Blackwood Tower with 2 strangers on either side of him and Marcus Riley standing behind him, watching the floor numbers climb. Vance had not been arrested. He had been invited. The invitation had arrived 20 minutes earlier in the form of 3 men in his lobby on 5th Avenue, who had told the doorman they were old colleagues of the doctor's and would be escorting him to a private consultation. The doorman had nodded. The doorman had been paid not to remember. The elevator doors opened on the 48th floor. The office wrapped the entire corner of the tower in floor-to-ceiling glass. From 2 of its walls, New York lay below like a spilled tray of diamonds. The cold lights of Midtown, the slow red current of taxis on Park, the dark river beyond. There was no art on the walls. There was no second chair. There was a single long desk of black walnut, and behind it, Aaron Blackwood, reading a newspaper. The newspaper was a copy of yesterday's New York Times, folded open to a small piece in the Metro section about a doctor at a Manhattan clinic who had been arrested the previous month on charges of insurance fraud and patient endangerment. Aaron did not look up when Vance was let in. The 2 strangers placed Vance in front of the desk. Marcus closed the door. Vance was already sweating. "Mr. Blackwood," his voice cracked on the second syllable. I don't know what this is about. If there has been some misunderstanding about the boy's care, I am happy to discuss the treatment plan." And Aaron folded the newspaper. He set it precisely at the edge of the desk. Then he laid 3 things down beside it. The first was a copy of Noah Carter's medical chart with red ballpoint annotations in a woman's hand. The second was a photograph, sharp, telephoto, of Vance and Vivienne Blackwood, meeting in the 3rd level of the NYU Langone parking structure 6 weeks earlier, an envelope visible in the doctor's hand. The third was a 1-page bank statement showing a wire transfer of $45,000 from a single-officer Delaware corporation into an offshore account held in the doctor's name. Vance's knees went out from under him. He caught the back of the chair before he hit the floor. "I am going to ask you one question, Doctor," Aaron said. He did not raise his voice. "Your answer will decide whether you leave this building by the elevator or by the window." He looked up for the first time. His eyes were the color of glass on the river 48 floors below and colder. "Who ordered you to keep Noah Carter sick?" Vance dropped into the chair. The sweat on his upper lip caught the light. It was Vivienne. Miss Vivienne. She approached me 8 months ago at a charity event. She said the boy's sister worked in your house and was a problem. She wanted the boy's treatment slowed, made it sound like a custody thing. a way to keep the sister desperate. I asked questions only at the beginning. He swallowed. The money was never from her. Vivienne was the messenger. The payments came from a Swiss account. The wires were signed CB Cordelia, your stepmother. Aaron did not move. He did not blink. He gave Vance one slow nod, the nod of a man whose suspicions had been confirmed by the last witness left to confirm them. Who else? Vance hesitated. Doctor, your father. The words came out flat with terror. Mr. Harrison Blackwood. He came to see me 2 months ago. He was alone. He asked very specific questions about the boy's prognosis. He asked whether the boy was lucid enough to give court testimony. He asked it the way a man asks who already knows the answer. I thought he was working with you. I thought the family was managing the situation together. Aaron's hand on the desk went still. The room went still around it. For 3 years he had carried the certainty that his father knew nothing. For 3 years his father had told him to let his mother rest. The line in Harrison Blackwood's mouth, "There is nothing here to find," Sun replayed inside Aaron's skull at a different volume. And inside that new volume, the line meant the opposite of what he had heard. He did not let any of it show. Marcus, boss, take him out. Keep him alive. Keep him able to speak. I will need him for a few more days. Marcus took Vance by the elbow with the kind of grip that left no bruise and made no argument. The 2 men beside him moved at the same time. The 4 of them were out of the room in 7 seconds. Aaron did not move. He stood and walked to the glass. 48 floors below, his city burned in soft electric gold. Somewhere inside that gold was a man named Harrison Blackwood, who had drunk coffee with him that morning and asked, very kindly, how the new shipping contracts were going. A new question had taken up residence inside Aaron's chest, and it was a quieter and worse question than the one he had walked into the room with. If my father knew, why has he stayed silent? The penthouse buzzer sounded at 1 a.m. Amelia had not slept. Noah had finally, fully, the way he had not slept in months, in a bed with linens that had not been washed 20 times in a coin laundry. She had checked on him 3 times. His chest rose. His chest fell. The arrhythmia bracelet on his wrist did not blink red. She was on the couch in the dark living room when the doorman's voice came through the intercom. Mr. Blackwood is on his way up, miss. She had time to pull her hair into a hasty knot. She did not have time to change out of the oversized gray cardigan she had taken from the closet, because the apartment was kept at a temperature she was not used to. There was nothing she could do about the smudge of exhaustion under her eyes. He came in without his coat. He carried a bottle of Brunello in one hand and 2 crystal glasses in the other. He set them on the low marble coffee table between the 2 facing sofas, as if he had done it in this apartment 100 times. He did not ask if she drank red. He poured 2 fingers for each of them and pushed one across to her. I told the men downstairs I needed to verify the security setup. Did you? I verified it on the elevator. There are 9 men in this building tonight. 6 of them are mine. He sat. He did not touch the wine. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The lights of Park Avenue moved slowly on the glass behind him. A delivery truck somewhere down on 68th let out the long sigh of its air brakes, and then there was only the building's quiet hum. When he finally spoke, his voice had dropped to a register she had not heard from him before. I'm sorry. She lifted her eyes. For what? For the fact that you were beaten inside my house. For the fact that I did not see you for 10 months. For the fact that the first time I did see you, you were bleeding on my floor. It was not the apology of a man performing remorse. It was the apology of a man indicting himself. She set the glass down without drinking. You don't owe me an apology, Mr. Blackwood. I am the one who did not trust you. You were not wrong not to trust me. A thin, dry sound that might have been a laugh, or might not have been. I am not a man you trust in the ordinary sense of that word. He turned the glass in his hand a quarter turn, and then set it down without drinking either. My mother was a painter, he said. Not a hobbyist. She had a gallery in Chelsea. She did not belong to the world my father was born into. She married him before she understood it, and she stayed inside it for 31 years because of me. When I turned 25, she asked me one question. She asked it once, and she never asked it again. She said, Are you sure this is the life you want, Aaron? And I said yes, because the honor of the family required me to say yes. She never forgave me for that answer, but she loved me until the second she stopped breathing on a road I was not on. Amelia did not think before she did it. She reached across the marble and put her hand on his. It was a small hand. His was not. Hers had 10 months of brass polish in the calluses. His had things in the lines that she did not let herself name. He looked at the hand. He did not pull away. You should not touch me, Amelia. My hands are not clean. Your hands are cleaner than the ones that sold my brother to a slow death." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood and reached for the coat he had not removed before he sat. "Sleep. Tomorrow will be a long day." He walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on the handle. He did not turn all the way around. "Amelia, yes. Thank you for not calling the police 3 years ago." She did not understand him. "If the police had arrested my stepmother that night," he said quietly, "I would have spent the rest of my life believing my mother died in a fog. I would never have known what she died for. You and your brother kept a piece of the truth alive without ever knowing you were keeping it." The door closed. Amelia sat very still on the couch in the dark. For 4 years she had carried Noah, and the rent, and the bills, and the silence of a small boy who had seen something on a cliff road. She had thought she was only surviving. She had not known she had also, all that time, been holding a piece of someone else's mother in her hands. Thursday morning, Vivian Blackwood woke at 7:30 and reached for her phone before she opened her eyes. The phone said no. 2 outgoing calls to Dr. Vance had returned voicemail. 5 text messages had been delivered without read receipts. She tried again. The line rang 4 times and dropped into the same dead box. She tried his private number. She tried his answering service. She tried the burner he had given her at the charity gala in August. Nothing. She sat up in the silk bed and dialed the other 2 numbers she kept hidden in a contact entry labeled florist. Dom. The second one. Both of them men she had paid to follow Amelia Carter into the lower garage on 3 separate nights. Both of them men who had been told the boss's daughter took care of her people. Dom did not pick up. The second one did not pick up. The second one did not even ring. Vivienne sat very still on the edge of the mattress with her bare feet on the marble floor, and felt for the first time in her life the temperature of the room she was actually in. Her phone slid out of her hand. She did not stop to dress. She wrapped a robe around her shoulders, pushed open the doors of her wing, and ran the length of the second-floor corridor in bare feet. Cordelia Blackwood was in the sunroom. She was 52, and the kind of beautiful that did not require any furniture in the room to compete with it. Pearl strands at her throat, a pale silk blouse the color of bone. She had a small pair of brass shears in her hand, and she was tending an orchid the way other people tended their reflections slowly, with attention to angle. Vivienne came through the door without knocking, and the door slammed against the wall behind her. "Mom, he knows. Aaron knows. Vance isn't picking up. The boys aren't picking up. We have to do something now. We have to take care of the girl and the boy tonight." Cordelia did not turn around. She made one precise cut along the base of a dead leaf and let it fall onto the marble. "Lower your voice." "Mom, you don't understand, Vivienne." The single word stopped her daughter in the middle of the floor. Cordelia set the shears down on the plant stand. She turned. Her face had not changed. "Stay where you are. Stay quiet. Do not call anyone else from any phone in this house. Go upstairs. Pour yourself a drink. I will handle it." She lifted a private phone from the pocket of her cardigan, a black flip phone, the kind no daughter had ever seen her use. She thumbed one preset number. She let it ring once. "Harrison, I need you to control your son. Family matter." Vivienne's mouth opened. Her mother had just called Aaron's father. Across the river at Blackwood Tower, the door of the 48th floor office opened without an announcement. Harrison Blackwood walked in the way only one man in the world had ever been allowed to walk in without warning, without Marcus at the door checking the schedule. He was 64. His hair had been white for a decade. His shoulders had not yet learned how to stoop. He had spent 4 decades teaching half the men in this city to fear the sound of his voice in a hallway, and he carried that authority into the room with him without raising it. Aaron stood. "Father, sit down. We need to talk." They faced each other across the desk where, yesterday, 3 sheets of paper had ended a doctor's career. Aaron did not offer a drink. He did not need to. Harrison spoke first. "I know what you are looking into. I want you to stop." Aaron did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was very quiet. "Stop. When my mother was killed," Harrison closed his eyes. Just for a beat. The wrinkle of the eyelid betrayed nothing and everything. "There are things you do not understand, son. There are secrets in this house that, if they ever leave it, will collapse everything we built, including the safety of the 200 families who feed their children on what your name guarantees." Aaron stood up. He brought the flat of his hand down once on the walnut. The sound traveled the long office and bounced off the glass. "So you knew." He was not shouting. He was steadier than shouting. "You knew. You knew she was murdered, and you let me believe in a fog for 3 years. Harrison did not deny it. The old eyes, which had never wept in front of his son, went red at the rims and did not spill. I'm sorry, my boy. There are things even I cannot fight. Aaron stood in the silence that followed and watched. For the first time in his life, his father became a smaller man than the one he had grown up worshipping. He asked one more question. Only one. What does she have on you? Harrison answered without raising his voice. Enough to bury all of us. Aaron did not go home that night. He drove out to the estate himself, alone, at 1:30 in the morning, and parked the car in the gravel of the lower drive so the gate cameras would not catch the swing of his headlights against the house. He walked through the back garden in the dark. He let himself in through the kitchen door with a key Rosa had not seen used in 3 years. The west wing of the second floor had been sealed since the funeral. The corridor still smelled the way the rest of the house had smelled the week. Eleanor dyed wax, lilies, the small chemical sharpness of a cleaning company that had been brought in to make a dead woman's rooms presentable to mourners. The door at the end of the hall had a lock on it that his father had personally turned. Aaron broke the lock with a screwdriver in 11 seconds. The studio inside had not been touched. Easel in the corner, still holding a half-finished canvas of the rose garden at dawn. A drafting table under the window, paint still flecked across its edge in 20 colors. The air smelled of linseed oil and dust and the ghost of turpentine. A wool shawl was thrown across the back of the wooden chair the way she had left it. The morning of the day she did not come home. He stood in the doorway for a long time. He did not turn on the overhead lamp. He used the small green-shaded reading lamp on the drafting table. He began with the drawers. The shallow drawers held brushes. The deep drawer held sketch pads. The locked drawer at the bottom of the roll top did not look locked, because it had been built by a craftsman in 1923 to look like a panel of trim. He had watched his mother open it once when he was 8 years old, and had been hiding under the table, and he had carried that small fact in his head for 30 years without using it. The panel slid sideways. The compartment behind it was the size of a thick book. The book inside it was a thick book, bound in dark green leather, no name on the spine. Eleanor's handwriting on the first page. A diary. He sat in his mother's chair and he read. He moved through it slowly. There were pages about his father at 26, the man Harrison had been before the work taught him the long stare. Pages about Aaron at 4, building castles of sofa cushions in this very room. Pages about a miscarriage in 1995 that no one in the family had ever told him about. Pages about the smell of paint at 4 in the morning. Pages about a kind of loneliness Eleanor had been too dignified to ever speak. He turned through them slowly until he found the page that was dated 1 week before her death. He read it twice. Today I found out, Cordelia is not only Harrison's mistress. She is a distant cousin of the Petrov family from Brighton Beach. The family Harrison ordered erased in 1997. She has been inside our house for 10 years for one reason. Revenge. I will tell Harrison tomorrow night. If anything happens to me before I do, read the page after this one. He turned the page. The next 2 pages were a ledger. Names, dates, amounts, the numbers of 2 offshore accounts in his stepmother's maiden name. A list of 7 Blackwood internal documents that had been photographed and moved out of the house between 2015 and 2022. A list of 3 judges, 2 senior detectives, and 1 Justice Department attorney whom Cordelia had been quietly funding from a Blackwood line for a decade, funding them in a way that, if reviewed by any honest federal prosecutor, would open 17 separate cases against the family inside of a single afternoon. Aaron understood 2 things at the same time. The first was that Cordelia Blackwood had killed his mother to keep her quiet about the second. The second was that the secret was not an affair. The secret was a knife held to the throat of the entire family. His stepmother had not married into the Blackwoods. She had infiltrated them, and she had been bleeding them for 10 years on behalf of a dead enemy. He set the diary down on his mother's drafting table. He put his hands flat on the wood. He did not make a sound. He did not move, but the tears that came down his face landed on the open page, in slow, even drops, and Eleanor's handwriting blurred underneath them, and for the first time in 3 years he allowed himself to mourn his mother, the way a son is allowed to mourn without an audience, without a strategy, without the weight of 200 families on his back. Marcus came up the corridor sometime later. He stopped at the doorway. He did not come inside. He waited the way a soldier waits at the perimeter of a place that does not belong to him. After a long while, Aaron stood. He wiped his face with the heel of his hand. Marcus, boss, call Amelia. Tell her to come. An hour later, Amelia stepped through the doorway of a room she had walked past 31 times without ever being permitted to enter. Erin held out the diary. She took it. She read the last entry. When she looked up, the man in the chair in front of her was not a mafia boss. He was a son who had just learned, at last, what his mother had died for. Amelia closed the diary. She set it carefully on the drafting table, the way a person sets down something that does not belong to them. The green-shaded lamp threw a low circle of light across the wood, and inside that circle, her hands were steady. Outside it, the studio was a country of shadows and unfinished canvases and the long, soft smell of paint that had been dry for 3 years. She moved to the small velvet sofa under the window. A dust sheet covered most of it. She turned back a corner of the sheet and sat. She patted the cushion beside her once, gently, the way one calls a tired animal. Aaron came. He sat the way a man twice as old as himself would sit, and for a moment he was no taller than she was. She did not speak. She put her hand on his. He looked down at it. His mouth opened. His mouth closed. For 3 years, he said at last, I have lived with a question that did not have an answer. Every night I asked it. Why did my mother drive through that fog? She did not drive at night. She did not like the parkway. There was no reason for her to be on Henry Hudson at 8 in the evening in November. And I told myself she was being reckless. I told myself she was being foolish. I told myself anything I could tell myself so I would not have to sit with the only honest answer. He looked up. The winter gray of his eyes was raw in the low light. She was running. Amelia tightened her grip on his hand. She was not running, she said. She was coming to find you. Read the date again. She had decided that night to tell your father the next evening. She did not get into that car to escape. She got into that car to drive to you, to make sure the man she loved would know what she knew before she said anything to anyone else. He sat with that. She watched it land in him the way she watched the morphine drip enter Noah's 4 in the hospital slowly, and then, suddenly, all at once, he turned his face toward hers. The gray in his eyes did something it had never done in any room she had ever stood in. It softened. If your brother had not seen the woman in the coat, he said quietly, I would never have known. The diary would have stayed under that desk for the rest of my life. You and Noah gave my mother back to me. I didn't do anything. It was Noah. You did everything. He turned her hand palm up in his. You took the blows in my house so a 15-year-old boy could keep breathing. You did not run. You trusted me when there was no reason on this earth to trust me. You walked into Battery Park in a fog at 7 in the morning and you put a folder in my hand that has cost 3 people their freedom already and will cost more before this is done. He lifted her hand. He brought it to his mouth. He pressed his lips to the small ridge of callus on the heel of her palm, the place where 10 months of brass cloth had hardened the skin, and he held the kiss there a moment longer than a man with any practice would have. Amelia. His voice had gone almost to nothing. When this is finished, I will have no right to ask you for anything, but I am asking now anyway. When I am no longer the man with blood on his hands tonight, let me come find you. The tears she had refused to let fall in front of Noah for 4 years rolled, without permission, down her face. You don't have to wait, she said. I am seeing you the way I am seeing you right now, completely. He looked at her for the long beat that decided everything. Then he leaned in. The kiss was not hungry, it was not rushed. It was the kiss of 2 people who had each, separately, walked out of a long night and found the other one standing in the same dawn. His hand came up and cupped the back of her neck without urgency. Hers stayed on his. When they parted, he did not pull back. He rested his forehead against hers. Promise me something. What? Whatever I do in the next few days, whatever I have to become to finish this, do not turn away from me when it is over. She closed her eyes. She thought of the linen folded in the dining room. She thought of the 4 stitches she had put into her own leg. She thought of the boy asleep 3 blocks of city away in a bed with locks on the door. I can't turn away, she said, because I am becoming someone I have never been allowed to be either, someone who is willing to fight. In the soft yellow circle of his mother's last lamp, in the studio his mother had left exactly the way she meant to come back to it, Aaron Blackwood closed his eyes and, for the second time that night, allowed another human being to see him whole. Saturday morning, the small private dining room at the back of Trattoria Carbone in Lower Manhattan had been closed for a family meeting. The street outside was quiet. 2 of Marcus Riley's men stood at the front entrance with their hands folded over the belts of their coats. A third had locked the kitchen door from the inside. Vivian Blackwood arrived at 8:15. She had received the message at 7 in the morning. Breakfast, Carbone, 8, come alone. It had come from the family number, the one Aaron used only for the kind of conversation that did not end in raised voices. She wore dark sunglasses indoors. The shade did not cover the swollen pink along her cheekbones. Her hands shook just enough to make her purse strap slip off her shoulder twice before she reached the door. Marcus opened it. He did not speak. He led her through the empty dining room to the small back chamber, where Aaron waited at a corner table. The table had been set for two: espresso in a small white cup, a basket of croissants under a folded linen, a glass of mineral water sweating in the cool air, and, in the center of the white cloth, a stack of photographs and printed pages turned face down. Aaron stood when she came in. He pulled out the chair opposite him. "Sit, Vivienne." She sat. He did not touch the coffee. He turned the stack of pages over without looking at it. He pushed it across the linen until it stopped exactly in front of her. She lifted the top photograph with 2 fingers. It was her, in the parking structure at NYU Langone. 6 weeks ago, Vance was handing her something. She remembered the exact length of that conversation and the exact weight of the envelope. The next page was the wire confirmation she had thought she had erased. The next was Vance's handwritten statement from a Thursday night office on the 48th floor of Blackwood Tower. 3 pages. Her name was in it 11 times. The sunglasses came off her face. She did not lift them. She let them fall on the linen and break a saucer. She began to sob, the kind of sobbing that did not have any breath in it. "You're going to kill me," she said. "Right here, aren't you? You're going to do it right here." Aaron watched her cry the way a man watches weather he cannot make stop. When he spoke, his voice was lower than the sound of her crying. "You are my half-sister, Vivienne. I will not lay a hand on you. Not now, not later." Her head came up. Mascara had run a long black line down her jaw. "But you are going to do one thing for me." "What?" "You are going to tell me everything your mother has done. Every account, every call, every man she has paid in or out of this city, every soldier she has placed inside our house, every signature she has forged. In return, I will let you live. I will put you on a plane to anywhere on this earth that does not have the word Blackwood on it, and you will never come back." Vivienne sat very still. Something behind her eyes broke in a way the slap on Amelia's face had not broken anything. She had spent 24 years believing that the woman in the pearls had spent 20 years protecting her, that every cruelty had been a tutorial, that the move from the apartment to the estate had been a coronation. She understood now, in front of a man who would not kill her only because she shared half of his blood, that she had never been a daughter. She had been a tool. Cordelia had used a child to keep a husband entertained, and a woman to keep a stepson distracted, and a half-sister to keep an enemy's gun pointed at the wrong target. Vivienne was not loved. She was equipment. She talked. She talked for 40 minutes. She named the Swiss accounts. She named the soldiers. She gave him the dates of every photograph her mother had moved out of the house. She confirmed that Cordelia had ordered Eleanor's death. She confirmed the call. She confirmed the smile on the cliff. And then, with the last of her voice, she said the thing she had not even told herself out loud. "She is poisoning your father." Aaron's hand stopped on the espresso cup. "What?" "Thallium. A little at a time. In his evening tea for the last year, she has been preparing him for a heart event. There is a new will. She made him sign it 8 months ago. I saw her drop the powder into the cup, Aaron. I thought it was a supplement. She told me it was a supplement. I thought it was a supplement." Aaron stood. He had his phone open before he had cleared the chair. "Marcus, boss, get my father to Street Vincent's private wing. Now, call Dr. Russo. Tell him I want a full heavy metal panel on Harrison Blackwood within the hour." He ended the call. He looked back at his sister. Her face was wet. Her shoulders were small. She asked the question she had no right to ask. "Do you hate me?" He did not answer right away. He looked at her for a long time. When he spoke, his voice had the thing in it that had been in it the night before, in his mother's studio, with Amelia in the lamplight. "You are the largest victim in this room, Vivienne. You just never knew." Sunday evening came down over Long Island in the slow lavender way of late autumn. By 7, the lights along the driveway of the Blackwood estate had turned themselves on. By 7:15, 4 cars had moved into position without their headlights. Marcus stationed 2 men at the front gate, 2 at the kitchen entrance, and 1 inside the garden hedge on the seaward side. The estate's own bodyguards were quietly disarmed in the staff wing. None of them resisted. Marcus had explained the situation in a single sentence, and they had handed over their sidearms. Aaron walked through the front door without announcing himself. He crossed the great hall. He did not take off his coat. He went through the double doors of the drawing room. Cordelia was on the long velvet sofa under the tall window. She had a small porcelain cup of tea on the side table. Vivaldi was coming from the speakers built into the bookcase. She was reading. She did not look up immediately. When she did, the corner of her mouth lifted in the slightest smile. "I have been waiting for you." He did not sit. He walked to the coffee table between them, and he laid 4 things down. The first was Eleanor's diary, open to the entry of November the 7th. The second was a small digital recorder. A flick of his thumb produced 30 seconds of Sebastian Vance, in a voice that had been broken hours earlier on a 48th floor, listing the dates and amounts of every wire he had received from a Swiss account signed C. B. The third was a typed, signed statement, 4 pages long, in Vivian's handwriting on the final page where it counted. The fourth was a single sheet of laboratory letterhead from the private wing at St. Vincent's. Patient name Harrison Blackwood. Toxicology results. Thallium positive. Sustained low-dose exposure. Estimated 12 months. Cordelia let her eyes drift across the 4 items. She lifted the porcelain cup. She took a small sip. She set the cup down. She smiled. Not the smile she had used at galas. The other one. The one she had worn at the edge of a cliff 3 years ago. "You cannot touch me, Aaron." He did not move. "I have spent 10 years collecting documentation on your father's affairs and the family's holdings. I have records of 17 separate transactions any honest federal prosecutor would call criminal. They are sitting in the office of a lawyer in Zurich who has standing instructions. If I die under suspicious circumstances, those papers are released. If I am arrested, those papers are released. If I am even quietly missing for 48 hours, those papers are released. 200 families lose their living the day after. Your father loses the rest of his life inside a federal cell. Your empire becomes a cautionary tale told by a podcast." She stood. The pearls at her throat caught the lamp. "So I will tell you what is going to happen next. You are going to walk back out of this room. You are going to take your investigation, and your photographs, and your little housekeeper, and you are going to forget that any of this evening occurred." Aaron walked closer. He was not angry. He was not loud. He looked at her the way a man looks at a wasp on a windowsill before he decides what to do about it. "I know about Zurich. My father told me 3 days ago." The smile slipped a 1/4 inch. "And here is what you do not know." He let the silence hold for 1 beat. 3 years ago, at 4:15 in the afternoon on Henry Hudson Parkway, a 12-year-old boy stood behind a bush on the upper path and watched a woman in a black velvet coat smile down at my mother's car. He saw your license plate. He saw your jacket. He heard the sentence you said into your phone. He went home and he could not sleep. And the next morning he opened a notebook and he began to write down what he remembered. He has written in that notebook every week for 3 years. 2 days ago, that notebook was photocopied, notarized, sealed, and placed in the files of my personal attorney. Cordelia's hand found the back of the sofa. The knuckles went white. "If your Zurich papers are released, my attorney releases the notebook. You will be charged with murder in the 1st degree. The FBI will then make a choice. They will look at financial corruption against the Blackwood name on one side of the table, and a documented homicide of a Mafia patriarch's wife on the other. They will choose the homicide. You know exactly why. Because a federal prosecutor wins more headlines burying a beautiful woman in pearls than burying a balance sheet." Cordelia's face went the color of the porcelain on the side table. She understood, in the long second that followed, that she had been outplayed using the only tactic she had ever trusted her own. Aaron did not raise a hand. He did not lift his voice. He walked around the coffee table, sat down where she had been sitting on the velvet, and lifted the teapot. He poured 2 cups. He pushed one across to her. "Now, dear stepmother, sit down. We are going to write a confession. Clean, complete, every name, every date, every account. You are going to sign it. And in exchange, I am going to allow you to live the rest of your life in a federal prison instead of disappearing very quietly into the Hudson." The private wing at Mount Sinai had its own elevator and its own corridor and its own kind of silence. The room at the end was lit by a single warm sconce above the bed. The dialysis line ran from Harrison Blackwood's left arm into a small machine that hummed at a steady, patient pitch. The doctors had told Aaron, in the corridor an hour earlier, that the poisoning had been administered carefully 12 months, possibly 14, low dose, the kind of program a chemist designs and a wife executes. They had told him the old man would live. They had told him another 3 months, and they would not have said the same thing. Aaron sat in the chair beside the bed. He had not changed out of the suit he had worn at the estate. The cuff of his shirt was still flecked with a small drop of tea where he had poured Cordelia's cup. He did not notice. After a long time, his father opened his eyes. "Is it done?" His voice was thin, but it was his. "Yes, Dad. She'll sign in the morning. Marcus has already reached the bureau through the back channel. She is going to a federal facility before the week ends. And the documents in Zurich." Vivian knew the lawyer's name. She knew the box. "We retrieved the file an hour ago. Marcus's people are on a private flight back from Switzerland as we speak. We will go through every page. We will handle what needs to be handled. What can be burned, we burn. What can be cleaned, we clean. We start over." Harrison closed his eyes. A single tear, slow, traveled out from under his lashes and down into the line of his temple. Aaron had seen his father bury 2 brothers, take a bullet in the shoulder at 38, and stand at the head of a casket draped in white roses 3 years ago, without once allowing his face to move. He had never, in 36 years, seen his father weep. "My son, I am here. I knew." Aaron did not speak. "I knew in the 2nd year. A man from the Petrov family was dying in a basement in Sheepshead Bay. He was going to die anyway. Before he went, he whispered a name to me. Cordelia, cousin to the Petrovs. Niece by a sister no one remembered. I almost killed her that night with my own hands. I drove home. I sat on the stairs of our house. And then I went to find proof. The way a man my age has been taught to find proof. And I discovered that she had taken 10 years of our paperwork out of this family, one envelope at a time. By the time I had the rope to hang her, she had a longer rope around my neck. I sat down with that rope and I did not move, because I did not have a son who was ready to stand beside me in that kind of war." He turned his face on the pillow. "I was a coward, Aaron. I let your mother lie in the ground for 3 years while I drank tea poured by the woman who put her there." Aaron took his father's hand. The fingers in his palm felt like the fingers of an old man for the first time in his life. "You are not a coward. You lived in hell for 3 years and no one knew. You held the family together while it was being eaten from inside. The war is over now. We finish it together." Harrison's grip tightened. Just a little. It was the strongest thing he had left. "That girl, Amelia, she came to you when I could not. Keep her. I intend to." The old man's breath hitched. He had one more thing to say, and he said it carefully. "The boy. Noah. I owe that child my wife. I owe him the truth I should have brought home myself. You take care of him like he was your own." "I will, Father." Harrison's eyes drifted shut. Aaron sat with him until the breathing was even. Then he stepped into the corridor and made one call. "Amelia. Aaron." Her voice was thin with the small hours. "Is he? He will live." She let out a sound he had not heard her make before. He let her have it. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "we take Noah to a hospital. Not New Langone. Dr. Russo. He is my family's private physician. He is one of the 4 cardiac surgeons in this country who can perform your brother's procedure. The cost, the room, the post-op, the medications, everything, I have it. Silence on the line. Aaron, I cannot accept. It is not me giving it to you." His voice gentled in the way she had only heard once, in a studio, under a green lamp. "It is my family thanking yours. Noah brought my mother home." The line stayed open for a long beat. "All right," she whispered. That night, Amelia sat beside Noah's bed in the penthouse and watched her brother breathe. The skyline of Manhattan moved through the window in slow, gentle pulses of light. Somewhere down on Park Avenue, a delivery truck sighed. For the first time in 4 years, she fell asleep without doing math. Monday morning, New York Presbyterian, operating suite 4. Noah Carter went under anesthesia at 22 minutes past 7, with his sister's hand on his forehead and his sketchbook on the chair beside the bed. Dr. Elias Russo, 61 years old, 3 decades on the staff of the same hospital, and a name written quietly on the recommendation letters of every cardiac patient the Blackwood family had ever discreetly funded, stepped through the scrub door at past. He told Amelia the surgery would take 7 hours. He told her she would be informed every 2. The waiting room on the surgical floor was a small, bright square with bad coffee and a television no one was watching. Amelia sat in the corner chair nearest the door. She did not sit alone. Aaron did not speak much. He did not need to. He brought her coffee at 9. He brought her a sandwich at 11:30 that she did not eat. He took her hand at 1 in the afternoon when the second update came through, and the surgeon's voice on the phone had the steady, neutral tone of a man who had not yet been asked to deliver bad news. At 2:45, when she finally slid sideways in the chair and slept for 19 minutes, he took off his coat without a word and laid it across her shoulders. Marcus came in twice. He stood by the door and waited until Aaron stepped into the corridor. The updates Marcus brought were not the updates the surgeon was bringing. Cordelia Blackwood had signed the 4-page confession at 6:15 that morning under fluorescent light in a study Aaron had not slept in. By 8, 2 federal agents Marcus had spent 11 years cultivating had collected the paperwork at the kitchen door. By 10, Cordelia was in a holding cell in Lower Manhattan, with the pearls placed in a clear plastic bag and her name on a docket. Vivienne had boarded a Lisbon flight out of JFK at 9:53. Her passport had been stamped, her face had been recorded by the gate camera, and she had been told, very quietly, by the man who walked her to her seat, that returning to North America would not be permitted under any circumstance for the rest of her life. Dr. Sebastian Vance had been delivered to the precinct on West 54th Street at noon, with 3 folders of evidence and a sworn statement from a witness identified only as V.B. He was charged before the end of the afternoon shift with conspiracy to commit murder and unauthorized administration of cardiotoxic substances. At 4 in the afternoon, Dr. Russo came through the swinging door in green scrubs with the small, quiet smile that surgeons reserve for the families they have not had to disappoint. He is in recovery. He did beautifully. Amelia got to her feet and could not finish standing. Aaron caught her elbow. Noah was small in the hospital bed in the post-op room, hooked to monitors, his lips dry, his hair flat against his forehead. The monitor above his shoulder showed a heartbeat. It was even. It was strong. It was the steadiest line the boy had produced in 4 years. Amelia dropped to her knees beside the rail. Noah's lashes lifted. He was still half inside the anesthesia. His eyes found her, then drifted, then found the tall man behind her shoulder. His small hand came out from under the blanket. It reached for Amelia. It reached for Aaron. It closed around both. His voice was hoarse. You're my big brother now? Aaron's mouth did something he had not let it do in 15 years. He smiled. A true one. If you'll have me. 6 weeks of recovery moved through the penthouse like a season. Noah stayed home and did his schoolwork online and started a new sketchbook full of harbor drawings. He attached himself to Aaron with the quiet, undramatic loyalty of a teenage boy who had spent 4 years measuring adults. Aaron taught him chess on a board that had belonged to Eleanor. On weekends, he took him out to the boathouse at the Long Island estate and showed him how to handle a small sailboat in the cold winter sound. Amelia did not return to the staff entrance of the Blackwood estate. Aaron asked her, over coffee on a Tuesday morning, if she still had the acceptance letter from Parsons that she had folded into the back of a drawer 4 years earlier. She did. He paid the spring tuition before she could say a sentence about it. The first week of December, Harrison Blackwood was released from the hospital. He came to dinner at the penthouse on a Friday in a soft gray cardigan that did not look like anything he had ever worn before. He met Amelia properly for the first time. He took both of her hands in both of his and held them. My girl, this family owes you and your brother everything we are. Call me Dad, if you can find the heart for it. The tears came down her face before she answered. Yes, she said. Dad, that night, after Noah had gone to bed and Harrison had gone home with Marcus, Aaron and Amelia stood on the balcony of the penthouse and looked down at the slow gold river of Park Avenue. He said it quietly. I asked my mother last night, in a dream, whether she would accept you. Amelia's breath was warm in the cold air. What did she say? She said, I've been waiting for this girl for a long time. 6 months later, May, the Hamptons. The east garden of the Blackwood estate had been planted by Eleanor Blackwood 20 years earlier, with 300 rose bushes brought up from a nursery in Pennsylvania. For 3 years after her death, no one had touched the beds. Now Amelia tended them on Sunday mornings with a pair of pruning shears that had once belonged to a woman she had never met but had come to know. The wedding was small. 30 guests. 2 long rows of white wooden chairs set among the early bloom of the cream-colored climbing roses. Harrison Blackwood sat at the front, thinner than he had been a year ago, but upright, his color back, a fresh handkerchief folded in his breast pocket. Noah, now 16 years old and half an inch taller than the spring he had nearly not seen, stood at Aaron's right shoulder in a dark blue suit he had picked out himself. Amelia walked the short grass aisle in a column of cream satin she had drawn on the back of a sketchbook in February. She was in her first year at Parsons School of Design. The dress was her own. Aaron stood under the rose arch in a black tuxedo, and for the first 3 seconds she stepped into the light he did not speak. He had practiced what to say. He forgot all of it. When he found his voice, he found it in front of everyone. You walked through my house for 10 months, and I did not see you. When I finally did, you were bleeding. I swear to you, and I swear to my mother, who is watching this from somewhere, I cannot see that there will never again be a night in your life when you stitch your own wound alone. Never again will you count the dollars before you sleep. Never again will you hide your pain so the people around you can keep believing the lie that everything is fine. You are my family. You are my home. Amelia did not wipe her tears. She let them fall on the satin. For 4 years I lived only so my brother could live. I forgot I was allowed to live too. You are the one who taught me that. I am not marrying a mafia boss today. I am marrying the man who gave me back my brother and gave me back myself. I choose you, and I will choose you every day after this one. They exchanged rings under the May sky over Long Island. They kissed beneath a canopy of roses that an absent mother had planted and a present daughter had brought back to life. 1 year later, Aaron had quietly walked the Blackwood name out of 60% of the operations the family had touched for 40 years. The rest moved into real estate, into legitimate investment funds, into clean rooms with clean books. When Marcus asked him why, Aaron answered without lifting his eyes from the paperwork on his mother's old drafting table. Because there will be children one day who carry this name. I want them to carry it with clean hands. Noah finished high school in the top of his class and submitted his portfolio to 3 art schools that spring. Cordelia Blackwood was serving 28 years at a federal facility in West Virginia. In the small office that had once been Eleanor's, Amelia placed a new photograph on the drafting table beside the old black and white one herself. Aaron, Noah, and Harrison, the 4 of them on the porch of the Hamptons house, the new family beside the old, and Amelia said it once, quietly, to the empty studio where so much of the truth had begun. For 10 months in that house, I learned how to be air. A year later, I learned how to be light, and that is the entire distance between surviving and living. Dear viewers, that was the story of Amelia Carter and Aaron Blackwood, a story about a young woman who carried her brother's life on her shoulders, a man who learned to see the people the world had taught him to overlook, and the strange, hard truth that sometimes justice does not arrive through the front door. It arrives because one person refused to look away, and another person, somewhere, refused to stay silent. The lesson hidden inside this story is a simple one. Kindness is not weakness. Silence is not always defeat. And the smallest witness, a 15-year-old boy with a sketchbook, a housekeeper who would not stop showing up, can change the outcome of a story that powerful people thought they had already finished writing. Look at the people around you. The quiet ones, the tired ones, the ones who smile and say everything is fine. See them, ask them. Sometimes the bravest thing a human being can do is notice another human being. If this story moved you, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it tonight. We post new stories like this every single day, and your support is what keeps these stories alive and reaching new hearts. We would love to hear from you in the comments. Which moment in this story stayed with you the longest? Have you ever been the quiet one in a room full of louder voices? Have you ever, in your own life, been someone's Aaron or someone's Amelia? Write to us from the deepest place in your heart. We read every comment, and the stories you share become the soil of the stories we tell next. To everyone watching tonight, wherever you are in the world, we wish you good health, a peaceful home, a heart that stays soft in a hard world, and small, steady joy in every ordinary day. Thank you for spending this hour with us. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people who quietly take care of you. Goodbye for now, and we will see you in the next video.